Hello and welcome to another episode of our Women in STEM series. My name is Kaylee Peile and I'm the Director of Development for the Linda Hall Library. Today our guest is Siva Sankari from the Stowers Institute for Medical Research. Siva, thank you
Hi.
for being here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for interviewing me.
Of course. So first I would love to know, can you describe what your role as the Assistant Investigator at Stowers is and how does that connect to the overall work that Stowers does?
Uh-huh. So, assistant investigator means I run my own research group. So I recruit and train students to do science. So I work on this interaction between plants and microbes and how plants manipulate microbes.
Okay.
And so we train and mentor students to address fundamental questions on this interaction between plants and microbes, and then mentor them so that they can have their own group and start their own lab and mentor more students on working on this fundamental research. And how this connects to Stowers' goal is that the goal of the institute is to foster fundamental research and ask basic questions about the many aspects of life and how different organisms functions, why do they do what they do, and ask these basic questions so that in the later years, like 10, 20 years later, what we find now in basic research will lead into applications in different either in medical world or in agriculture, and have this kind of clinical relevance later during the year. So we, as an institute as a whole, we focus on answering these basic questions and then developing that into applications down the road.
That makes sense. So you're kind of laying the important foundation work
Yes.
for future research. That's really important. Okay.
That's one of the uniqueness of Stowers is that in bringing fundamental questions and giving the freedom to investigators like me to ask the questions that we are really passionate about and finding the answers to these basic questions in life so that, we can develop this into medical applications later.
Sure. So speaking of being passionate about this work in life, tell me your education, your workforce journey. What brought you to Stowers? You've got a master's in biotechnology. What kind of inspired you to start this journey for yourself?
So I grew up in a very small town in India, and during high school, the basic thing is that you either go into medicine or you go into a basic undergraduate degree and find a job. But during my high school, I got really passionate into biology, chemistry, and physics. And so during my bachelor's and master's, I was working mostly on biotechnology and like how microbes control metabolism, how we can control microbes to produce various products. And then I wanted to get really deep into the molecular aspects of how does this function, how do microbes function, and then the journey was up the ladder, and since I'm from a small town, I have to grow slowly on each step of the ladder, and then got really passionate into research, and so I wanted to do a PhD. So I came to the US and did my PhD in biochemistry, and then that's where I fell in love with these organisms that I work on, the soil bacteria and the plants, and then so I wanted to continue it, and so I did my postdoc at MIT and worked more on the specific plants and microbes that I now work on. And what brought me to Stowers was the uniqueness of the freedom that we get to work on things that are really passionate about.
Yeah.
So that's what brought me here.
That's fabulous. I love that you've applied your passion in various ways, and you've continued your education, which I think is so important. A lot of the women that I've talked to for this series, they have a mixed background. They have a lot of different passions and a lot of ways that they want to apply it, and the fact that you've found ways that you can really plug your passion into the work, I think is really exciting. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're able to be a part of the Stowers team. So this new plant research that's happening at Stowers, can you tell me a little bit more about that for me and for also the people who will be watching? What does that kind of mean?
Yeah, so I'm excited that I'm bringing in plants and microbes as a model organism in Stowers. So what I work on is that, you know, plants cannot use atmospheric nitrogen for their making their own protein. So they completely rely on soil for nitrogen.
Okay.
But that's why we provide so much fertilizers, chemical fertilizers to augment their nitrogen supply so plants can grow. But leguminous plants, legumes that we eat, like
Yes.
chickpea, soybean, so what they do is they figured out a way to grow even in low nitrogen soil by establishing this beneficial relationship with bacteria. So the soil bacteria kind of move into the roots of the plant, and they provide atmospheric nitrogen into a plant usable nitrogen so the plants can grow. And the plant provides carbon, another nutrient for the bacteria to grow. So this is kind of mutually beneficial symbiotic relationship between the plants and microbes. And this is called biological nitrogen fixation, and this serves as an effective alternative to chemical fertilizers. And so my lab particularly research on these peptides that are produced by the plant that kind of enslave the bacteria and kind of make them as like a nitrogen fixing factory to work for the plant. And
Wow.
I'm studying like how these peptides kind of make these bacteria to work for them. And also, these peptides, now if we understand this, then we can translate various medical applications and agricultural applications for these peptides and for beneficial nitrogen fixation as a whole. So that's what we are intending to do in the future, and that's why we study this relationship.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and it sounds like it's a much needed innovation when it comes to our community that is incredibly agricultural based.
Yes,
That's something we
yes.
all need to be talking about. So I love that you are spearheading that. That's fabulous.
Yeah, thank you.
So when you're talking about, building this research as an investigator at Stowers, you mentioned kind of growing a team of researchers. Can you talk a little bit about that process? You mentioned before, kind of off camera, being really intentional about inclusivity. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So one thing throughout my journey, what I realized was like for someone from like an underrepresented background and as a woman, there was always opportunities available, but I didn't have the proper guidance or the courage to go for those opportunities. So I really thank my mentors all through the way who were there not only to give me the opportunity, but to fully support me and train me to go for the next step in my career. So in my group, I make it intentional that I really support this diverse group, create an inclusive environment for them so that they feel supported for their next step in career. And we have to be intentional about it, because it's not that it's also that women need to go for careers in STEM. STEM also needs a diverse set of people working to get these creative ideas from different perspectives. So as a scientist, I feel it's a responsibility for me to bring different people, train them so that this inclusive group can then take it on to the next generation, and then they can create more diverse group it improves the scientist, and it also improves the science as well.
Yeah, you're making a ripple effect.
Yes.
Next generation of mentors, and we need those. I love that. The intentionality is so important. And thank you for sharing that. So when it comes to the STEM or STEAM ecosystem, that landscape, how can we be more intentional? What are the things that you are seeing? I know you just moved to Kansas City, but what are different ways that we can be more intentional kind of across the board outside of Stowers?
So one of the thing is giving opportunities, and also I find that that scientists need to be like focused on making the resources available to the next generation, to say, okay, these are all the opportunities one can go on, and kind of have like a support group for each other and for the next generation, so
Yes.
that everybody knows that, okay, these are all the opportunities available. And the next step is to encourage them to go for it and kind of like support. For example, I can say in my field, there are like reading their CVs,
Okay.
reading
Yep.
their resumes, like what do you have to do for
Right.
it? What kind of training do you need to get
be
to
the
that
candidate.
step?
Yes, exactly.
And also, I feel that it's like a responsibility that you have to show us an example for the next set to do it, and then constantly have this thing in mind that you have to support them throughout. It's not just training them as a scientist, but
Right.
then you have to kind of support them in every step
Right.
of in science and in their life, and then kind of give this push to get them to where they want to be in the next step in the career.
It's not just opening the door, it's the consistent kind
Support.
of support.
And then it's not like when they are in the lab, like then students go to the next lab and then they go to the next area, but then still you have to like reach out. That has to be intentional
Right.
to kind of check out, like, hey, what are you doing right now and how can I help you to get to that thing? And that has to be that has to come intentional. You have to be like thinking about it
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah, it's more of a community mindset, which
Yes.
I think the same way, so I appreciate that. When it comes to the community then and your work at Stowers, it's kind of a two-part question, but what are you excited about within your role at Stowers, and what are you excited about within just the STEM community for women and for people of color in general? That's a big question.
Yes, as like I said, for Stowers, I'm super excited that I get to do what I love. Like every day, this is the questions that I want to answer in science, and I get all the support I want to do that. And I also get all the support I want to recruit and train whoever I want to train. That's another big thing I'm excited about,
Yeah.
bringing up this scientists to ask basic questions in life.
In the future.
I'm super excited that Stowers gives this opportunity, like creates this equity and equality in not just in recruiting but in supporting everybody. And then I'm excited that I see, like I said, from my town, I was the only person who went for a PhD, and that too in in basic science research, and it was kind of a new thing. But now I'm really excited that there were so many women and people from underrepresented group, they're coming out, and then I see so many people even from my own town like going for PhD, and I see more representation now. What I want to do is to kind of extend that support, like so that more and more women come into science and then kind of feel supported. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're laying that groundwork for sure. It sounds like you're not only an inspiration to your town in India, but you've been an inspiration here already.
Yeah.
I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you.
And I think that you're really going to change the game for future generations when it comes to research here in Kansas City. So thank you for doing your part. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I would like to say that this is a unique, Stowers is a unique place in supporting basic research. Of course, I want to see everybody get interested in basic research, like ask the basic questions.
Sure.
Everything doesn't need to have an answer right away.
Right.
You kind of build up that puzzle pieces so that you get the answer
Right.
in the long term. So I want students to be excited about basic research and like kind of Stowers, come to Stowers for doing basic research. But I'm also, I also want women and people from underrepresented group to actually have that courage to express their passion.
Yeah.
And then just go for it.
Yeah.
Like just keep trying, and if you have your doors open, I think there are opportunities to, like, you have to just keep pushing and grab those opportunities and just stick to your passion and move forward, and then you'll be really enjoy it. I guarantee that once we get to that point, we'll really enjoy that part.
Yeah, I love that. It's a brighter future. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Siva, for your
Thank
time.
you. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Yeah.